Je capret en cheer mo grai, cheer en groen en bound en nacht. Je capret en cheer mo grai, cheer sally linear hollow.
What is traditional music? Is it a document of our past, fixed and frozen in time to be stocked on a museum shelf like an 18th century musket? Or is it a living thing? A fluid and timeless music of the people, as changeable as language and as contemporary as the last time it was shared. The Canadian Society for Traditional Music has made itself an invaluable force in Canada's musical life because it has always answered, it is both. Since its founding as the Canadian Folk Music Society in 1957, the country's most important folk scholars have been active members. Edith Folk, Helen Creighton, Richard Johnston, Kenneth Peacock, Barbara Cass-Beggs. But its dual mission to be both preservationist and bridge to modernity was the primary vision of one man, its founder and first president, Marius Barbeau. It complements both men to call Barbeau the John Lomax of Canada. Like that pioneering U.S. folklorist, Barbeau helped move folklore from a study of antiquity into the documenting of living cultures. But also like Lomax, Barbeau wanted to repopularize folk traditions. He promoted professional performers, encouraged contemporary uses of traditional music, and produced festivals that brought together long isolated folk cultures. That vision is still very much alive. Our mission, says Society President and Canadian Museum of History curator Judith Clausen, is to be a space dedicated to studying and promoting musical traditions of all communities and cultures in all their aspects. I think the Society's impact has been gentle, not flashy or dramatic, says Memorial University ethnomusicologist Beverly Diamond, a Society member since 1973. She adds, gentle but pervasive, just doing small good things. At heart was a desire to make traditional music accessible to everybody. Among those small good things are the publication of 2 magazines, the Scholarly Music Cultures and the General Interest Canadian Folk Music. The Society connects separate collections, archives, and scholarship through its website and bibliographies, offers a mail-order service for archival and modern recordings, and through its annual conferences fosters an ongoing dialogue between scholars, performers, and fans. It is fair to say there is not a traditional collection in Canada that is not better archived, better known, and more available because of the Society. And that, in a nutshell, was Barbeau's idea. Collect and preserve the culture of the people, then give it back to them. Barbeau did his first field recordings on a Huron Indian reserve in 1911, using wax cylinder records. He was soon recording throughout Canada, compiling a priceless multicultural archive. He invented a notation system for transcribing the vocal nuances of First Nation singing, and was the first collector in Canada to document the name of each musician rather than simply their ethnic origin and community, as had been the norm. This was people's music. The people mattered. But at the same time, Barbeau promoted folk music to the public. In 1919, he became the first Canadian to present folk music in a concert setting to urban audiences. He promoted the careers of early commercial folk stars like Florence Glenn and the very popular Juliette Gautier. By the 1950s, Barbeau had amassed an epic collection of over 12,000 folk songs. But who was using it? He got the idea for a central organization to connect archives, scholars, performers, and fans. By then, he was among the most renowned folklorists in the world and got the United Nations to let him open a Canadian branch of the International Folk Music Council. 1 year later, it became an independent organization with Barbeau as president. While not one of its projects, the Society profoundly shaped the epic Canadian collection on Folkways Records. Over 100 albums of authentic field recordings and vintage folk singers like Alan Mills, Helen Byerjohn, Wade Hemsworth, and Jean Carignan.
En pleurant des pays étrangers, parcourait en pleurant des pays étrangers.
It began in the 1950s when Sam Gesser, an early society member and Canadian distributor for Folkways, complained that it had virtually no Canadian albums. Label head Mo Ash replied, "What are you going to do about it?" Then he committed to release anything Gesser brought him, provided Gesser bought the first 100 copies. It made me, he later admitted, a very motivated distributor. Gesser reached out to collectors like Barbeau, Creighton, and Folk who contributed material from their own collections. Canadians began receiving unprecedented access to the most authentic sounds of their own folk music.
I agree to leave my native land. I agree to leave my comrades on.
The Society's dream was coming true, and the Canadian folk revival exploded. During the difficult years after the commercial revival, the Society's annual conferences became important crossroads for an increasingly isolated folk movement. John Leader was the Society's secretary for much of that time and president for 2 years. By moving our conferences to different regions every year, he says, we were able to help validate local folk communities and better connect them with the national scene. This passion for inclusiveness has come at a cost. As Leader says, fundraising is difficult because some granting agencies are only concerned with the academic, others only with the popular end. The Society lost one key government grant because it had too many performers among its members. But as the Canadian Society for Traditional Music has proven, in so many ways, folk music is both artifact and living thing, meant for everybody to share in museum archives and in concert halls, scholarly journals, and town dances. What Barbeau understood was that to not champion a place for traditional music and contemporary culture would be to change it, remove it from its natural habitat within the lives of the people, and forever alter its purpose, meaning, and value. The Society, like tradition itself, changes to reflect the people who use it, being more performer-based, then more scholar-based, then a bit of both. Because the Society is volunteer-run, says Claassen, people are invested. Who is involved shapes what it is, while hanging on to that core nugget of being a welcoming space for everybody.
Au Canada, terre de nos aïeux, ton front est ceint de fleurons glorieux, car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.